Excons of Reddit, what was the hardest prison habit to break after being released? I didn't use a fork for a few weeks. Ate everything with a spoon without thinking. It's not the most interesting thing, but I hadn't noticed it posted here. Sam, I tried to cut a steak with a spoon and my dad was like, "You're free now." I don't know why, but I imagined your dad as Morgan Freeman. Taking as long as you want in the shower. For the longest time after I got out, I took less than 5-minute showers. My friend did 2.5 in Florida State Prison. Said the first thing he did when he got home was shower until all the hot water ran out. Edit, because this seems to be coming up a lot, this was like 15 years ago. Tankless water heaters weren't really a thing back then. I'm not totally sure if they even existed, and if so, they weren't common in lower income households. So, yes, it was very possible to run out of hot water. Doing laps. In prison, every time you get time on the yard, you do laps. Seriously, almost every single person does it too. When you get out, it's hard to break that habit. Oh yeah. This is accurate. This guy went to prison. Pacing back and forth in your pod too to get that little bit of cardio in. Pretty much any time you've got the chance to lol. Do some laps, maybe see a few people to get something for when you're locked in, talk some shit, then get ready for lock-in, only to repeat it again the very next day. Every day. For the next couple years. I find myself hoarding toilet paper under my bed. Sometimes I do it without thinking and I'll look under there and have 10 rolls of TP. Probably stupid question, but why did you hoard it in prison? The hardest thing has been to talk without using the words duck, fucking or asshole in every sentence. Duck dude, I have this problem and I've never even been to jail, just from Boston. Duck you too, asshole. That means love you in Boston. Duck you, how do you know? I spent 72 months in prison for a tragic car accident that I had caused. After I was released, I kept telling my wife exactly what I was doing without her asking. She thought it was funny at first, but after a few weeks of it she was starting to get bothered. Why did you develop that habit in prison? I'm just curious. Comment in a different part of the thread said you get used to having to tell authority figures what you're doing before you do it at all times. I'm sleeping chips away at cell wall with sharpened spoon. It's sleep apnea, dink 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 dink. A somewhat friend of mine did a few years and the one habit he couldn't shake was distrusting people. He said that people in prison are never nice. If they're nice, it's because of a hidden motive. Up to this day he still doesn't trust people who act nice, generous, helpful towards him. I've grown up in a sort of rough environment, it's like that in general there too. Nothing is free, everything at a price. I had a guy want something from me as a teenager and I didn't do it for him. He brought up to me that he told me where a good hardware store was. Didn't take me there, buy me anything, or even tell me that they for sure had what I was looking for. Just told me where a supposed good one was. He thought this was leverage enough to get what he wanted out of me. Nope. Making prison commissary only food. Everyone around me thinks it is gross as hell to throw summer sausages, pickles, cheese, Doritos, Cheetos, and such into my ramen noodles, but good lord, I can't stop, and I have been out for 5 years. My dad was in and out of jail when I was a child. When he was out he used to make me jailhouse slams, basically whatever you can find to throw into ramen, as you said. I thought they were the best thing ever, and it was so cool cause I ate what my dad ate, right? Fast forward about 12 years and I'm telling my GF this story and she's just like, "Your dad fed you prison food?" Edit, a word edit too. My highest comment is about my traumatizing childhood, lol, thanks guys. My dad did the same. Growing up I never thought twice about. It was probably one of my favorite things dad made. Marrying into a family of cops, I mentioned slams in passing and got a few looks from the in-laws. The only slams Denny's won't sell. Not me, but guy who worked for me. When things were very busy, I would often get carry-out lunch for everyone and bring it back to the workplace. This one guy would eat a cheeseburger and french fries in 2 minutes. Wow. Once I asked him why he ate so quickly. He said, "Well, Nobsfrgma, I spent 7 years in a federal prison and if you didn't eat your meal in 10 minutes, you didn't get anything. That 10 minutes often included the time it took standing in line to get your food." Okay then. I never said anything to him about it after that. Hey you. You're a decent human being. You hired an excon. Keep up the decency. I'm not that great. I lived in a small coastal community on the Gulf of Mexico. Of course, seafood was the main business with lots of small boats and subsistence fishing, crabbing, oystering. The FBI put together a sting and hired 4 fishermen to offload what was supposed to be bags of cocaine onto their boats from a large boat that could not go in shallow water. It was actually not cocaine. They were to be paid $10,000, which was, to them, almost a year's income. These 4 fishermen were busted and ended up spending 7 years in federal prison. And a prison far, far away from their families, so I had known this young man for years, and for me, his time in prison was like PFFT. You screwed up, but whatever. He was funny and hardworking and not really bitter about what happened. He worked for me in my small wholesale seafood business and was great. P.S. I would have no qualms about hiring an ex-con. Not afraid of that. As long as they didn't have 13 tattooed on their forehead. My ex would sleep a certain way all the time. To me it seemed like he was sleeping as if he was in a coffin, his arms crossed, and wouldn't move the entire night for a couple months. He eventually broke that habit. Edit, a word. I did that too when I was in. Not because I was afraid of getting raped, but because if someone came at me when I was sleeping, it was the best position to be able to defend yourself. I'm a stomach sleeper normally. I'm sure this was his reason too. When I would go visit him and see other inmates through the glass, I would be so afraid for him. Some guys look like beasts and act very wild. Yeah, there are some lunatics who definitely deserve to be there, but there are unwritten rules as well. It's all about reciprocal respect. Some of the coolest guys in there were gigantic dudes from the hood. For the most part, if you respect them, they will respect you. Don't cross them, though. Edit, coolest, not cooled. Dude I work with said for the first little bit after getting out he would take a leg out of his pants when head shit. Not sure how common that was, dude's a fighter though, so maybe that had something to do with it. A couple guys I know after being out for 5 to 10 years wrap their arms around their plates and shovel food in their mouths at the speed of light. They are also super defensive of their food. When I first got to know them I jokingly swiped a chip off one of their plates and he flipped his fork up and demanded I give it back, freaked me out a lil. I could just imagine them going on a date with one of them people who says they don't want anything but then proceed to grab something off your plate. Joey doesn't share food. Covered in cake, I'm not even sorry. I don't smoke, but every time someone offered me a cig I would pocket it. On the inside that's a bartering chip, took me about a month or 2 to break. What's the smoking policy in jails? Because aren't you only allowed 2 hours outside a day? Does that mean you can only smoke for 2 hours of the day? Or could you smoke inside? I've always wondered. I don't think you're allowed to smoke inside, but many of them do it anyway. I mean, what are they going to do, send you to prison? No, but they will lock you up harder. My friend once told me he got hooked on watching news channels and crappy daytime television. He said he also enjoyed listening to radio now, even though he knows specific podcasts exist that are more tailored to him. He killed himself 3 years ago after getting a 20-year sentence just 1 year after getting out. Edit, a lot of people asking questions, so I'll just go ahead and clarify here. At 18 he served a little over a year in prison for moving marijuana, got out, violated parole and got caught moving mass amounts of marijuana and other things like breaking into homes, petty theft, which was going to send him back for at least 15 years. After the jig was up he had a while where he was allowed to stay at home, where he shot himself with a 9mm pistol in the head. He survived the initial shot but later died 2 days after going to the hospital. Was a great friend, knew him since elementary school, top of our graduating class in high school, just too much exposure to the wrong people.